A dark time capsule buried deep within the Vatican's secret archives. Lost artifacts and warnings to future generations. These are scary time capsules that won't be opened until years into the future. The Crypt of Civilization. This one is really cool because it's not just buried in the ground like you'd imagine most time capsules to be. This one is an entire room-sized time capsule. It's a massive vault designed to last for over 6,000 years. Yeah, this one isn't set to be opened until the year 8113, a little more than 30 years, but close enough. It was sealed up way back in 1940 at Oglethorpe University in Georgia. Thornwell Jacobs, the professor and historian who ran the project, was inspired by the opening of the Egyptian pyramids and wanted to create something people, or whatever species exists thousands of years into the future, could discover. A snapshot of human civilization as it was in the early 20th century. As for what's inside, it's just about everything you can imagine that would give future people a sense of what life was like. There are books, films, everyday items like a typewriter, a sewing machine, and a cash register. They even included recordings of famous speeches in radio shows, thinking people in the far future might want to know what our leaders and entertainers sounded like, which they probably would. Unfortunately, these folks had no way of knowing that the internet was going to be a thing, and all that stuff is just floating around in the cloud anyway. But I mean, who knows what'll happen in 6,000 years? Maybe things will get really bad and we'll have reverted back to like knuckle-dragging cave people scrounging for scraps in rivers of toxic waste. I mean, 8113. Think about that for a second. We're talking about a time capsule meant to outlast nearly every civilization we've ever known. The world would be completely different by then. Will there even be anyone left to open it? And if there is, what will they think of us? Ever heard of America's Stonehenge? They were this massive granite monument that popped up in rural Georgia back in 1980. They had these 10 guidelines for humanity engraved on them in 8 different languages. The creators believed, and probably still believe, that humanity will face disaster in the future, a social, nuclear, or economic calamity. The guidestones were created to be just that, guides for whatever society would grow in the aftermath. Now, no one really knew who funded or built them, only that a mysterious guy using the alias R.C. Christian commissioned the monument. In 2022, the guidestones were damaged in a bombing by a vandal and were removed. But there's a conspiracy theory that claims there's a time capsule buried beneath the guidestones. A time capsule put there when the monument was built in case it was ever destroyed. Some think it could contain historical documents or artifacts from the 80s, but because the guidestones have always been so mysterious and controversial, others believe it could be something way more sinister, like plans for a new world order or a manifesto, or maybe even something supernatural. With the guidestones gone, the chances of ever finding out what's buried there are very slim, unless whatever was there was removed along with the monument and was covered up. Samuel Adams and Paul Revere's time capsule. So back in 1795, these two Revolutionary War legends decided to stash away a time capsule in the cornerstone of the Massachusetts State House. This capsule was forgotten for over 200 years until it was accidentally rediscovered in 2014 during some routine maintenance work. When they cracked it open, they found old coins, newspapers, and a silver plate engraved by Revere himself. And as cool as this stuff was, there's always been this lingering question. Was that all they left behind? Some historians and conspiracy buffs think there might be more to this time capsule, maybe even a second hidden lair. There's this theory that Adams and Revere, being the rebels they were, might have hidden secret documents or even some sort of coded message. The idea is that they might have wanted to pass down something more important to future generations, something that maybe we haven't found yet. So while we've technically opened this time capsule, there's this nagging feeling, or maybe admittedly a hope, that there are still some secrets out there, hidden in some other cornerstone or buried deep in the archives. The Vatican time capsule. Alright, so this one is even more mysterious than the last 3. Feels like something right out of the Da Vinci Code. Now, let me say right off the bat, there's no official acknowledgement that a Vatican time capsule even exists. But if there's one place in the world where you'd expect to find a hidden trove of ancient secrets, the Vatican. And according to rumors and whispers from those who are into this kind of stuff, the Vatican may have buried a time capsule deep in its archives, or possibly even beneath St. Peter's Basilica. We already know the Vatican's secret archives exist, so why wouldn't there be something even more secretive buried deep inside of there? Well, what's in it? Well, some say it could contain religious artifacts that are too controversial to reveal to the public, things like ancient scrolls or even evidence of early church conspiracies. And what if it holds apocalyptic prophecies or documents that could shake the very foundations of the Catholic Church itself? The idea that the Vatican, a place that's already so surrounded by mystery and power, could be sitting on something that might never see the light of day is unsettling, to say the least. And even if it does exist, who's to say when it'll ever be opened, if ever? The rumored lost Alcatraz time capsule. So Alcatraz, the infamous prison that housed some of the most dangerous criminals in American history, including Al Capone. There's this long-standing rumor, though, that a time capsule was hidden somewhere on the island by the inmates or the prison staff before the prison was shut down in 1963. No one knows for sure if this time capsule even exists, but there are stories from former guards and inmates who claim to have heard things about it. If it does exist, the big question is, what's inside? Well, some people think it could be a collection of items from the prisoners themselves, letters, personal effects, maybe even confessions to some especially messed up crimes. Others believe the time capsule might have been placed there by the prison staff, containing records or documents that could shed some new light on what really went on behind those bars. Most of us have heard of the Winchester Mystery House, right? Especially if you frequent this channel. But if you're not familiar with it, it's this very bizarre mansion in San Jose, California, built by Sarah Winchester, the widow of the guy who invented the famous Winchester rifle. The house is this maze of twisting hallways, staircases that lead to nowhere, and doors that just open up into walls. It's said that Sarah kept building the house to confuse the ghosts of those killed by her husband's rifles. Now, it's already a very unsettling place, given the context, built by a woman who was clearly losing her mind. So the idea of there being a time capsule hidden somewhere in this already incredibly eerie house is definitely intriguing. According to some rumors, Sarah Winchester herself hid a time capsule within the mansion's walls before she passed away in 1922. The theory goes that she filled it with personal items, maybe even messages meant to act as warnings for future generations. But just like the house itself, this time capsule is a complete mystery. Where is it? Does it even exist? Sarah was known for her obsession with spiritualism, though, so the idea of her hiding some kind of treasure or strange artifacts is definitely possible. There's also speculation that she might have left behind blueprints or instructions to the house's construction that would finally explain the madness behind its design. Back in 1909, the Arizona Gazette ran an article by this guy named G.E. Kincaid, who claimed he was rafting down the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon when he came across a cave entrance about 2,000 feet up the canyon wall. He hiked up to check it out, of course, and according to Kincaid, this cave was just full of ancient artifacts. Egyptian artifacts, to be specific. Statues, tools, there were hieroglyphics, even mummies, all in this cave hidden in the middle of the Grand Canyon. He went on to say that he grabbed a few relics and sent them off to Washington, D.C. for further study. Now, if this sounds like something out of an Indiana Jones movie to you, you are not alone, especially because there's no official record of Kincaid's findings. The Smithsonian, which Kincaid claimed to have sent the artifacts to, has no documentation of ever receiving them, but this has led to a whole bunch of conspiracy theories. I mean, what the hell was this article? Some folks believe the Smithsonian is involved in a massive cover-up, hiding the evidence of some sort of Egyptian-like civilization right in North America. Some even think that the government sealed off the cave and that heavily armed guards protect it to this day, as if the cave is one big time capsule of a lost ancient civilization. The Crypt of Civilization 2. Yes, we have a sequel on our hands. Now, this one's kind of an idea that I had a second, more modern version of the Crypt of Civilization. The idea is to build another time capsule, even bigger and more advanced than the last, and unlike the first crypt, which was pretty public and well documented, this one would be kept more secret, meant to act as more of a warning than a fascinating snapshot of current life for future civilizations. This one would contain more controversial items, things like classified documents, technologies that are ahead of their time, and warnings about the dangers our technology led to, only to be found by some future civilization long after we're gone. Now, as far-fetched as it may sound, it does make sense. I mean, hopefully we're not headed for an apocalypse, but if we were, if things were bad enough that there was no going back, why wouldn't we want to warn whatever civilization hopefully grows from the aftermath about the mistakes that we made? The Lincoln Cathedral time capsule. Now, this one's been shared on some message boards, but it's very hard to find any actual news stories about it. So either people are just messing around telling spooky stories online, or something's being kept hidden under wraps. But supposedly in 2018, during some routine restoration work at the Lincoln Cathedral in England, workers stumbled on this large sealed tin box. The interesting thing about this one, no one knew it was there, which obviously raises all sorts of questions. All we do know is that it's not set to be opened until 2086, but who exactly put it there? Why was it kept a secret? It's believed to have been placed there in the late 19th century, but there's almost no record of it anywhere. That means someone went to great lengths to bury this thing without telling anyone. As for what could be inside, some say it could be documents, possibly letters, maybe even some religious artifacts, but until it's opened in 2086, we won't know for sure. Although I have a sneaking suspicion it's already been opened. I mean, if it does exist after all. I mean, why the hell not? Right? If that's the case though, why keep the contents secret? Well, if it contains something that challenges what we know about the history of the church or the people who ran it back then, that might be a reason why. All right, now I'm cheating here a bit with this last one, but it's just so fun I had to talk about it. Consider it a bonus. The Nickelodeon time capsule. Yes, that Nickelodeon. There's not just some random guy from way back in history named Nickelodeon. At least not that I've heard of. So in 1992, Nickelodeon decided to put a time capsule together full of stuff that youngsters cared most about at the time. And all the stuff's buried in a big capsule in Nickelodeon Suites Resort in Orlando, set to be opened on April 30th of 2042. The list of items includes VHS copies of Home Alone and Back to the Future, Michael Jackson's Dangerous album, a Game Boy, a Ren and Stimpy t-shirt, comic books, Twinkies, Reebok pump sneakers, a Barbie doll, and news reports of the AIDS crisis, Desert Storm, and the end of the Soviet Union. I really hope 2042 isn't a dystopian hellscape where no one knows what Game Boys and Twinkies were, but you never know. With all that said, I've been your host, James, and I'll catch you, yes, you specifically, in the next video.